It was the day of our family trip, and when I arrived at the airport, there was no one there. I called my sister and she replied, "This week will be amazing without you, loser." 8 days later, she was begging for my help. Hello, everyone. This is a tale of betrayal, payback, and the moment my self-centered sister realized she had crossed the wrong person. Let me introduce the key players. I'm Alex, a single father to my wonderful 10-year-old son, Liam. Liam has cerebral palsy, which means he uses a wheelchair and needs extra care. Despite his challenges, he's the happiest and brightest kid I know. Then there's my sister, Lily. Lily is the kind of person who always gets her way, whether she deserves it or not. She grew up spoiled, adored, and never faced consequences for her actions. She has 2 daughters, whom she calls her perfect angels, and she believes the world should revolve around them. The last time we spoke before this mess, she called my son a burden. It happened during our family's Christmas gathering. Liam received more gifts than her daughters, not because he asked for them, but because our relatives wanted to make him happy. Lily couldn't handle it. During dinner, she started complaining about how unfair it was, how my son was getting special treatment, and how her daughters deserved more. Then, in front of everyone, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Maybe if he wasn't such a burden, people wouldn't feel so guilty." That was it for me. I cut her off completely. We didn't speak for 4 months. The only reason I didn't go entirely no contact was because I was still supporting our parents financially, and some of that money indirectly helped her. Even after everything, I didn't want my nieces to suffer because of their mother's behavior. Out of nowhere, Lily called me. She apologized, admitting she had been awful and wanted to make things right. As a peace offering, she said she had booked a family vacation and had already paid for my ticket. She told our parents, her husband, and everyone else that this was her grand gesture to fix things. I was skeptical, but I wanted to believe she had changed. Liam was thrilled. He was too young to fully grasp what she had done before, but he knew she was family, and that meant something to him. I told myself that maybe, just maybe, she had grown up. So on the day of the trip, I went through the exhausting process of getting Liam ready, packing everything he needed, and heading to the airport. Transporting him was the hardest part. He can't walk, and while I'm used to handling his wheelchair, airports are a nightmare. Crowds, security, baggage, it's overwhelming, but I kept telling myself it would be worth it. We arrived at the airport and looked around. No Lily, no family, no calls, no texts. My heart sank. I tried calling her. No answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. Then I got a text. "This week will be perfect without you, loser." Followed by another. "I'll pay for the cab with the money you once sent me." Haha. I stood there, gripping my phone, my blood boiling. Liam saw my face and asked, "She tricked us, didn't she?" I didn't know what to say. I was furious, but more than that, I was heartbroken. Not for myself, but for Liam. He had been so excited, and now he was devastated. We took a cab home, and he sat there the whole way, arms crossed, fuming. "I hate Aunt Lily," he finally said. And honestly, I didn't blame him. But I wasn't going to let her get away with this. If she thought she could humiliate me and walk away unscathed, she was wrong. I went straight to my parents. My dad listened to everything, sighed, and said, "Well, if she wants to play games, let's play." That's when he gave me an idea. A brilliant, simple, and absolutely perfect idea. Lily thought she was returning to her normal life after 8 days of fun in the sun. She had no idea what was coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Liam's disappointed face and Lily's cruel text. She had tricked her own brother and her nephew with a disability just for a cheap laugh. The next morning, I went to my parents' house. My dad was waiting for me, sipping coffee as if he had expected me. My mom, however, looked uneasy. She hated conflict, but even she admitted this was a new low for Lily. Dad leaned back and said, "So, you want to teach her a lesson?" I didn't answer immediately. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted her to understand that actions have consequences, that she couldn't treat people horribly and expect no repercussions. Dad smiled and said, "Then I've got an idea for you." And his idea? Brilliant. Simple. Completely legal. Here's the thing. Lily and her husband, Mark, rented their apartment. They didn't own it, and their landlord, a close friend of my dad's, a guy named Tom, who didn't like Lily's attitude. Dad called Tom that morning, explained what had happened, And just like that, we had our plan. Now, let me tell you something about Lily and Mark. They were terrible tenants, always late with rent, always throwing loud parties, always getting complaints from neighbors. Their lease was month to month, and Tom had been wanting to evict them for a while but never got around to it. Until now. That afternoon, Tom taped a notice to quit on their door, effective immediately. They had 7 days to vacate. And guess what? Lily and Mark were on vacation for 8 days, which meant when they returned, they wouldn't even be able to get into their apartment. But that wasn't all. My dad, being the generous man he is, offered to help clear out their apartment while they were gone. After all, Tom needed the place empty for the next tenant. And since Lily and Mark had left in a hurry, they hadn't locked up anything valuable. Big mistake. We spent the next few days packing up their entire apartment. Clothes, furniture, kitchenware, everything. We boxed it all up, rented a storage unit in Mark's name, thanks to my dad having his details from a past favor, and moved everything there. We even paid for the first month. By the end, their apartment was spotless, empty, ready for new tenants. Lily had no CL Liam, by the way, loved it. He wasn't usually one for petty revenge, but even he said, "I hope Aunt Lily cries." I hoped so too. Now all we had to do was wait. 7 days passed, 1 to go. The night before Lily was due back, I sat in my living room, sipping a drink, knowing that in 24 hours, my sister's life was about to implode. This wasn't just about payback, it was about teaching her a lesson she'd never forget. Liam was still upset about what had happened, but when I told him Aunt Lily was going to get a surprise of her own, he smiled. "She deserves it," he said. And for once, I didn't feel the need to tell him to be the bigger person. The next morning, Tom called me. "Hey, you want to be here when she gets back?" I grinned. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Lily and Mark's flight landed around 11 a.m. I imagined them stepping off the plane, relaxed and sunburned, thinking they were heading home to unwind. Instead, they arrived at their now former apartment to find a notice of termination on the door. Their key didn't work. No way in. And all their belongings? Gone. It took less than 3 minutes for my phone to blow up. I let it ring. Then she called my parents. No one answered. 15 minutes later, I got a text. "What the hell did you do?" I smiled and replied, "This week will be perfect without you, loser." She called back immediately. This time, I answered. Before she could scream, I said, "You left me and Liam at the airport. Now you know how it feels." She went berserk, yelling, cursing, threatening to call the police. "You stole my stuff," she screamed. I calmly replied, "No. Everything is in a storage unit in Mark's name, paid for the first month. Here's the address." Then I hung up. I wish I could have seen her face. It took them 4 hours to get a locksmith, realize they were truly evicted, and drag themselves to the storage unit. That evening, Lily showed up at my door. I didn't even have to open it to hear her scream, "You ruined my life! You had no right! Mom and Dad are furious with you!" I texted my mom, "Are you mad at me?" Mom replied, "No. Your dad and I are watching TV." I opened the door. Lily stood there, puffy-eyed, sweaty, a complete mess. Mark was behind her, looking exhausted. I let her scream. I let her throw her tantrum. Then I said, "Liam wants an apology." That shut her up. She hated apologizing, but she knew she had no leverage. She knew she'd messed up. So she muttered, "I'm sorry, Liam." From the couch, Liam shouted, "Say it like you mean it." I almost laughed out loud. In the end, they had to stay with Mark's parents. Their dream vacation ended with them homeless, humiliated, and powerless. And you know what? I slept great that night. You'd think after being evicted and humiliated, Lily would have learned something, maybe some humility, or that actions have consequences. But no. Instead, she did what she always did, made it someone else's problem. After Lily and Mark found out their apartment was gone and their stuff was in storage, they had no choice but to beg Mark's parents for a place to stay. Let me tell you about Mark's parents, Elena and Greg. They don't tolerate nonsense. They never liked Lily. They put up with her because she was their son's wife, but even at family events, they kept their distance. They thought she was entitled, spoiled, and selfish. Now they were getting a front row seat to living with Lily, and within 48 hours, they were already regretting it. Lily started acting like she owned the place. complaining about the food, leaving dishes everywhere, hogging the bathroom like it was a luxury resort. Elena, who prided herself on a clean home, was losing her mind. And Mark? The spineless coward just let it happen. On the third day, Elena called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the best of me. "Alex, I think it's time for you to fix this," she said. I laughed. "Fix what?" she sighed. "You got Lily and Mark evicted, and now they have nowhere to go. They can't stay here forever." This was going to be fun. "You know I didn't get them evicted, right? They were terrible tenants. Their landlord was already planning to kick them out. I just gave him the final push." Elena didn't like that answer. "Anyway, they're your family. Your parents have a house. They can take them in until they get back on their feet." That was rich. "Elena, they already said no to Lily." Silence. She wasn't expecting that. Then she snapped, "You're being unfair." I couldn't help but laugh. Unfair? Unfair is tricking your nephew with a disability into going to the airport for a fake vacation just to humiliate me. That's unfair. If you're so concerned about fairness, maybe talk to your daughter-in-law. She hung up. Less than 5 hours later, Lily called me. "Alex, we need help." I put her on speaker so Liam could hear. "Oh, now you need help?" She ignored my sarcasm. "Greg and Elena won't let us stay much longer. Mom and Dad won't help. We're out of options." I shrugged. "Sounds like a you problem." "Alex, please, we have nowhere to go." "Maybe next time don't burn every bridge you have," I replied. She got desperate. "You're seriously going to let your nieces be homeless?" The nerve. "Funny," I said. "You weren't worried about my son when you left him at the airport. But now that it's your kids, suddenly it's a problem." Silence. She tried crying. Didn't work. She tried guilt. Didn't work. Finally, she snapped. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I thought for a second. "Yep." Then I delivered the final blow. "You know, I actually considered letting you stay with me, but Liam said no." The sound she made was pure rage, and just like that, the conversation was over. Now, they were officially out of options. Elena and Greg had had enough. My parents refused to help. And me? I slept like a baby. I thought that was the end of it. Lily had burned every bridge, and Mark's parents were ready to kick her out. My parents stood firm, and I was happy to let them deal with it. But Lily? She wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke up to loud banging on my door at 6:30 a.m. Liam was still asleep, so I quietly got up and looked through the peephole. It was Mark, alone, sweating, looking miserable. I opened the door just enough to talk. "What the hell are you doing here?" Mark exhaled like he'd run a marathon. "Alex, listen. I need your help. It's about Lily." I hadn't expected this. I stepped outside, closing the door so Liam wouldn't wake up. "What's going on?" Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking more stressed than ever. "She lost it last night, screamed at my parents, said they were disgusting for not helping family. My mom told her to pack her things and leave in the morning." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay, and Lily?" He sighed. "Called the police." I almost choked. "She did what?" Mark nodded. "She told them my parents were abandoning their grandkids and making them homeless." Holy hell. "Let me guess," I said. "It didn't go the way she expected?" Not even close. When the police arrived, Elena and Greg had proof they hadn't evicted them. They'd simply asked them to leave. They even had messages offering to pay for a hotel. The cops took one look and told Lily, "This isn't our problem." Now Lily had officially ruined things with Mark's parents. Elena told them to leave immediately. "So where is Lily now?" I asked. Mark shifted uncomfortably. "She's still there, but my parents said she can't stay past today. And Alex," I knew what was coming. "She wants me to beg you to let us stay." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. "You're joking." Mark looked even more uncomfortable. "She thinks if I ask, you'll consider it." I shook my head, still laughing. "Mark, you're an idiot, but I don't think you're as bad as Lily. So let me ask you this. Do you even want to be in this situation anymore?" Mark looked away. "I don't know, man." Then it hit me. Mark wasn't just here to beg for Lily. He was thinking about leaving her. I took a deep breath. Mark, I'll make you a deal. You get Lily out of my life, permanently. You leave her, take your kids, and go. In exchange, I'll help you find a place to stay. Just you. Lily is on her own. Mark's eyes widened. You'd do that? I would, I said, but only if you're serious. He hesitated. I could see the wheels turning. Think about it, Mark. Do you really want to keep living like this? He didn't answer right away, but I could tell the seed had been planted. Now, all I had to do was wait. Mark stood there, clearly torn. But in the end, weak men don't change. He shook his head. I can't do that, man. I wasn't surprised. Then you're on your own. I turned to go inside, but before I could close the door, he blurted out, She's coming here. I paused. Excuse me? Lily, she said if I don't convince you, she'll do it herself. She's on her way. I sighed. Fine, let's get this over with. I didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, a car screeched into my driveway, and Lily stepped out. She looked terrible, puffy-eyed, hair a mess, running on rage and no sleep. She barely made it up the porch before exploding. This is all your fault. You ruined my life. I crossed my arms. You mean like you ruined Liam's? Her face twisted. That was a joke. And you got us evicted. You turned everyone against me. I didn't flinch. No, Lily, you did that yourself. She didn't listen. She started sobbing, pointing at Mark like he was a hostage. Mark told me what you said. You're trying to turn him against me, steal my family. I raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you didn't do that? Before I could say another word, she lunged at me. It happened so fast. 1 second, she was screaming. The next, her hand was in my face. Liam saw everything. For a moment, there was silence. Even Mark looked horrified. Then Liam's voice came from behind me. You're a horrible person, Aunt Lily. I turned around. There he was, my 10-year-old son, glaring at her with more anger than I'd ever seen. Lily blinked. Liam, sweetie, you don't understand. I hate you, he said. She froze. I'd never heard Liam say that to anyone. And Lily? She finally broke. She stepped back like she'd been hit. Her face crumpled. For the first time, I saw it. The realization. She had lost. Not just her home, not just her reputation. Everything. She turned to Mark. Are you really just going to stand there? And that's when Mark, spineless, pathetic Mark, finally grew a backbone. He took a deep breath and said, I think Alex is right. Lily's face went blank. I can't do this anymore, Lily. I just can't. You don't care about anyone but yourself. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. You can stay with my parents if they'll have you, he said. But me and the girls, we're done. Lily stood there, silent. No screaming, no fighting, just defeat. Then she turned and walked away. No words, no drama, just the slowest, most broken walk of her life. Mark meant it. He took his daughters, moved out, and filed for divorce 2 weeks later. My dad helped him find an apartment, and true to my word, I helped him settle in. Lily? She tried to crawl back to our parents, but they refused. She ended up couch surfing with friends, realizing no one wanted her around. She went from vacationing in paradise to losing everything. And me, Liam and I, we were better than ever. For the first time in years, Lily was finally out of our lives. It's been months now, and life has been peaceful. No Lily, no drama. Just me and Liam enjoying life without her toxicity. Mark got full custody of the girls because Lily had no stable home. Last I heard, she was still blaming everyone but herself. Then, at the grocery store, I saw her. Lily. She was near the checkout, screaming at someone. And not just anyone. It was Tom, the landlord who had evicted them. I froze. What was this? Then I heard her clearly. You said you were going to help me. My brain short-circuited. Lily and Tom? No way. But before I could process it, Tom saw me, panicked, and bolted out the door. Lily turned, saw me, and ran too. I stood there, stunned. I called my dad. Did you know Lily and Tom were involved? The silence told me he didn't. What? He finally yelled. I explained everything. My dad started laughing. Oh, son, he said. Now we know how she avoided eviction for so long. It all made sense. Lily had been involved with Tom. That's why she'd gotten away with late rent and loud parties. She thought she could charm her way out of trouble. But when it all fell apart, she got evicted anyway. And now? Looks like Tom had dumped her too. Judging by their screaming match, it wasn't pretty. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.